Alright, welcome to Pointless Stories with Karsh and FS. This is episode 18. We're back with more bullcrap. I think this episode or like this night is something that I've been waiting for because something's happened in the past week in Karsh's life, and it's a theme that is quite recurring with us, which is the instances in our life where we meet people completely at the random in between our days, and they become a story that we like to tell. But I think the beauty in all of this is that, again, we talked about this in the first episode, I think, Salman from Gujranwala. And the thing is, these single self friends are very often some of the most interesting stories that you will have in your life. And I think today we'll start off with that and the story that's transpired in the last week. So, Karsh, welcome back. And I'm looking forward to this one, buddy. No pressure, I've got a few of my own, and I know you've got a few of your own as well. But I guess we're adding one more, and we're doing it live for the audience that is, the prettiest woman in the world. So let's get going, I guess.
No, man, I'm the same. Like I've been really stoked for this episode all week, just because a few things happened just this week that I felt like they fit right in with this theme. And if we wanted to go on like a really long conversation, which I think we can honestly do a whole hour with the stories we've had that involve Uber drivers.
Yeah.
But I think I'll start with what happened this week.
Right.
I think some of them are quite interesting, and I remember I was listening to Nusrat, right? I was listening to some of his Qawadis.
Nice.
This was a night like before going to bed, like अच्छा खासा हम मूड बना के if you know what I mean, like काफी महफिल बना के I was like listening to some of Nusrat's like some of his classics, like you must have noticed, like in Qawwali, a big recurring theme is Ali, like a lot of Qawwali are about Ali, and that goes for Nusrat as well. Like he's got Shahid Mardan Ali, which is an amazing Qawwali, it's like
it is
really moving, really powerful. I was also listening to Ali Da Malang, which is another great Nusrat, performance. There's also Man Kunto Mala, which is a lot of Qawads have sang that one. I mean, I performed that one, but I really like Nusrat's. My favorite is Amjad Sabri's, but I think
I concur
I think
completely.
Yeah, man, Amjad Sabri's version is insanely good, dude.
It is.
Oh man, it's unreal, dude. Like, I remember listening to that. Sorry, no, what was that?
It's moving.
It's so moving, man. That's exactly it. Like, I remember listening to that on some, on some really good headphones.
Dude. That'd be perfect.
And yeah, it's really a journey, man. Those like 20-ish minutes that the Qawwali goes for, it's magical, Even my dad loved it. Like I remember playing it on when sometimes I'd chill with my dad. We'd listen to like some music together. Like I try to meet him like like obviously he's not going to like if I play like techno or even like some of the other things I listen to, but I'm like, of all the genres I listen to, this is one that that I know that he would like as well, and that he listens to as well.
Yeah.
That was even he was like really into it. Like I think it's just very well done that like the first time you hear it, like it takes you to another dimension.
Yeah, it transports you, absolutely, man. You don't leave your room, but you go all around the world. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, man. But yeah, I was listening to the Nusrat version as well. And I remember, man, the next morning, you're not gonna believe it. Like,
right.
This is I don't even know if this is an algorithm shit or if this is no. It's probably just a coincidence, honestly. Like,
let's see.
I took an Uber to work, right? And the driver was Zulfikar.
Right. Yeah.
And that's like Zulfikar is Ali's sword, like
yeah.
You know, and hence like that's why like a lot of I mean not a lot, like I think in cases of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, it's because they were Shia family, right?
Yeah.
And for them, like it just made sense to have a name where it's Zulfikar and Ali, and then your family name Bhutto,
very
where it's like Ali. It's just a very like and in the Pakistani context, it's a very like very Shia name. Like it would be like having a name like Hussein Ali Jafri,
True.
But yeah, man, it's like I was like really it was interesting to see that. I didn't ask him where he was from. It was one of those like silent Ubers.
No way. No way.
Like honestly, in fact, in the mornings, sometimes like I'll have like quiet Uber rides as well.
No way. Yeah. Hard to believe.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, especially when they're Pakistani.
Yeah.
Like I want to know
everything.
More. Yeah, exactly. I want to like learn a little bit about what kind of their background is, and I didn't ask him. Like it was especially early mornings. Like sometimes the rides will be quiet. There was another guy I met though, with whom I had a longer chat, who's from Lahore.
Right.
And
nice. Where
and this is the thing, man. Like I started to notice this pattern, right? I mean, he it came up eventually. We were talking about the snow and the rain here, and how if there's like a shortage of rain one year, it really affects the farmers.
Yeah.
Because
my God, you go. Oh man, that is wonderful. I can't believe you actually said that. Like, I love how deep your Uber conversations are.
Yeah, because I don't even know how it came up, but we somehow
came up organically. Yeah, we ended up with monsoon showers organically. Nice, man. I believe you, and this happens to me as well. Well, it's hard to explain.
But then I remember him saying, the thing is like my family, back in Pakistan were like farmers. Like we've been farmers for many generations, right. So that's how I know a little bit about this. And then that's when I had to ask him, since he mentioned Lahore and he mentioned of a farmer background, I was like, okay, are you Jack by any chance?
Right.
He's like, yeah, I am actually. And, And it got me thinking, and this is something I've talked to a few people about as well, but it's pretty interesting how in Punjab, right? There's so many different religions that live together. True. Or like used to live together at least. Like now it's a bit divided, but like there's Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims, and Punjabi Christians as well.
Yeah, they're rare, but they do exist.
But when you look at like something like caste, right? Like if they're Jat, for example, you'll see that they're Jat Sikhs, they're Jat Hindus, they're Jat Muslims as well.
True.
And they'll all share like the same last names. Like you'll see a name like Anu Malik, and there's Shoaib Malik as well.
Yeah. I know Malik. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are Maliks who are like Christians, Hindus, and like Sikhs as well.
Yeah.
And you must have seen Chaudhry as well. Like I've seen Asif Chaudhry, and I've seen like what other Chaudhry, like Amandeep Chaudhry,
Yeah.
So you'll see like the caste is something that like caste or clan like really matters in Punjab. Mm-hmm. Like it's a very like caste stratified society.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it really extends to like all religious groups that live there. Like if you've seen a name like Chima, Chimas are like Jarts as well. Jarts, and you'll see. I remember there was a fast bowler with the name Chima in Pakistan.
Right.
And there's Chimas in India, like Sikhs and Hindus as well. Yeah, man, it's interesting to see that in Punjab, like a lot of these, it just goes to show how a lot of these boundaries were like,
man-made, yeah.
And more like strengthened by the British to like, solidify their rule in the region.
Yeah.
And, they really exploited the differences between different groups, even if they, even though they coexisted for like, for centuries.
Yeah, agreed.
And they're really the same people, you really see that in those shared surnames and the shared kind of identities as well. Like, they're Jarts in like every faith in Punjab. Mm-hmm. And even Pakistanis who are Jarts, right, they still identify as like, हमारा खानदान है जो वो जट कौम या राजपूत कौम से ताल्लुक रखता है,
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't think of it sounds like you wouldn't think of it like if you didn't know about it you'd be surprised to hear like someone from Pakistan like identifying as Rajput, for example.
Agreed, yeah.
But I have friends who are like from Pindi and they're Rajput, and they still like identify with their caste, and Gujar as well. Like it's the same for all of them. They really are the same people,
Yeah.
But I remember him telling me a little bit about that, like since he comes from a farming background, he was telling me about like how they would manage things back there, and like it's just interesting to hear this stuff, like see how much like they have in common with India, like
and
how like
even the farming bits. Like I'm honestly intrigued. I would love to be like a fly in that cab.
Yeah, man. I mean, I find it even more interesting that it's in Brampton, where even if you meet like the Indian Punjabis, they're mostly Jat as well. They're mostly of farming backgrounds as well.
Right.
Because like in many parts of India, farming is like it was the
primary source
like
of livelihood.
Yeah, and they were the landowners, right? Like, and especially in Punjab, like, they're like the more, the landowning communities, the property owning communities, and like you'll see that a lot, and you'll see that in Punjabi music as well. I mean, I'm sure you've heard them say, like I'm sure you've heard Jat like 10 million times,
Absolutely, man. I've been काफी गहरी ताल्लुक है.
बिल्कुल यार. और हाँ, लोग एक ही हैं यार. That's what I really get out of meeting people. Like when I meet Pakistani Punjabis, for example, I really see how like similar they are to like their Indian counterparts. Like everything from like shared surnames, shared identities, shared clans, all the way down to shared dialects as well. Like if you hear the Punjabi from Amritsar and from Lahore, it sounds the same, you know.
Yeah. But they're so close, man. Like, this. I apologize to like cut in on your story, but this idiot who's a Pakistani YouTuber, you know, he said, "There's a road in Lahore." So I think I can't remember what it's called. Firozabad. Right, it's called Firozabad Road or something, and he was really surprised to find out that it goes to Firozabad, which is in India. To Kafi, like, it's pretty close by, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like, there are people who still like know each other from, you know, like the time of the partition, like, like people who grew up together who would now be in like their 70s ish.
Yeah.
You know, or like 80s ish, I should say. But yeah, man, like it's because Punjabi has so many different dialects. That you see that, you know, like Amritsar and Lahore would have more in common than say like Multan and Lahore, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, true.
Like in terms of like similarities between their dialects, they're like they would use like this more similar expressions and like the way like syntax and just the way of speaking would be more similar.
Right.
And then when you get to places like Mirpur and all, you know, they that's like at that point it's you could say it's even a different language, you know, like I remember watching this, like, I don't know, these used to be big back then. They were like live, you know, like live shows.
Yeah, oh dude, I'm thinking of this now, but you're right, it used to be a bigger thing back in the day. You don't see it too much now.
Yeah, you're so right. Like I can't remember the last time I even saw a live show on TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would take like live calls from audiences, right?
Yeah.
And I remember watching this one that's like UK based, right?
Right.
And UK is a like for like case with Canada, where
it's the same.
Both the Indians and both Indians and Pakistanis there are mostly Punjabi.
Yeah.
So like even like most Desis and I mean there's other communities as well, but like most Desis who've been in the UK a long time, they're Punjabi, right?
Yeah.
Both Indian and Pakistani.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like it was a Punjabi show, like where based in the UK, like I think maybe it was Southall or Birmingham, one of the two. You know, I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
But often they would get calls from both Indians and Pakistanis because they're both Punjabi speaking, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember this one lady calling, and she was like speaking to them in Punjabi, right? And then, but then it came up like what language she was speaking, and then she's like, "No, I'm not." And she said it in Punjabi, but she was like, "No, I'm not speaking Punjabi. I'm speaking Portwari," you know.
What? Yeah.
And now many of them would consider it to be a different language. Even. Like if you ask them, you know, they would say, "I speak like Mirpuri," you know, or "I speak Portwari." But yeah, man, it does sound very different, you know. Like I will say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that was the only thing I wanted to say. Like I remember telling a friend about this as well when I first moved to Canada, that it's quite interesting that all the most Desis you'll meet here, both most Indians and most Pakistanis, they have their roots in Punjab.
Yeah. But
and same with the UK as well.
True. But it's honestly a very insightful story into, you know, what can happen on a normal morning if you get into an Uber, you know. Life is kind of unpredictable, and sometimes it feels like all the best writing goes into the most useless elements, you know what I mean? Like, if our life was a show, it's like, you know, the bloopers, or like, in between like ads, you have these outtakes, right? Those are beautiful, but the essence of the show is kind of pointless. That's kind of like how our life is going. But
no doubt, no doubt. No, I feel that, man.
Yeah.
But there was one more guy in that, but this is a little bit different.
Right.
But I think you'll still like find it very interesting because it's the first is a little bit more about like our kind of our interests and how sometimes two seemingly like I'm listening to Ali, Qawwali's about Ali one night, and the next morning I meet Ali's Talwar, and things like that. That's like just coincidences, and unexpected things. Serendipity, you could say. Fortunate accidents.
Dude, beautiful. I love serendipity. I keep mentioning it in my writing, but it's one of my favorite like topics. If you really look into your life, I think that's the element that I think is beyond writing, because you and I, we write, but you can't write serendipity, and it's beautiful. But go on.
Yeah, no, honestly, you can't, man. It's just one of those things, where like it's a recurring theme in our lives because we've had a lot of accidents and happen, and in hindsight, they always turn out to be fortunate in some way, where we're like, man, we feel like we made decisions that were bad, or we fell short of meeting commitments, and we. Things didn't work out for us the way we wanted. This is something that we've experienced a lot in life, like setbacks, where like, like dealing with rejection and failure and these things, we've had to face those things a lot.
Yeah.
But then I think the recurring theme is we look back on them and see them as fortunate accidents, as serendipitous, because they eventually led to something like good happening and something something working out for us in a different way that we wouldn't have happened otherwise,
That's beautiful, man. But like just on accidents, the moment you said that word, my mind went to a certain place, and I want to have this on record, and this is just for your bhabhi कि जब हम 13 साल के थे, we had a teacher in class who said, children in the dark cause accidents. And Karish, who, without skipping a beat, and who was sat next to me, and remember, we're 13, like, none of the kids knew what he meant, but he replied with, no. Accidents in the dark cause children. And like to be able to understand that at age 13, I think today that's normal, but like in our time, I remember there were like 20 people in that class, and I'm pretty sure apart from me, no one got it. But it's wonderful. It's a wonderful play on words, and it also shows we had a very developed sense of understanding of how things work back then. Jo fuzul ki baat tha ki we didn't actually need it all that much in life, but like, go on. I just wanted to remember that moment from 2006.
No, we were truly ahead of our time, but
for no reason.
Man, I completely forgot about that joke. But,
oh, dude, that is classic, man. It's one of the like highlight. It's in the highlight reel of my life.
It's honestly still funny, that joke.
It is, yeah.
I bet if you told it today, it would still get laughs.
I agree. I think it's something that I haven't heard anybody else phrase in the same way. And, like, to be able to do it, impromptu is not easy. Like, to take the same setup of words and just change the placing a little bit and change the meaning is beautiful. It's very hard to do.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, dude. But yeah, the other thing, so serendipity was the big one, right? Like, going to bed. It's just a simple thing. I didn't even talk to the guy the whole ride. Just, a little bit of, just hi, hello, exchanging pleasantries, but that was it.
Mm-hmm.
But just, how, like, sometimes two parts of your life connect in just a way that's serendipitous,
Yeah.
But the other thing was just how small the world is, which I remember, this was just yesterday, right? I remember coming home and I met this guy. He was an Uber driver, right? And on my way back from work, and we didn't really talk much. We just started like chatting a little bit, and I thought I heard an accent that I recognized.
Right.
And so like I'd asked, where are you from? And he was like, I'm from India, Kerala.
No.
And
dude.
And then and this has happened like, not too many times. Like it's rare. Like, but I think in the last few years there's been more migration from Kerala to Canada.
They don't make great Uber drivers though.
It's very rare, usually I'm fully ready for it to be like
Pakistani, Punjabi, but not one of these.
Just either any one from Pakistan or like in Brampton, like Punjabi, what I mean? Like just whether Indian or Pakistani, either
Punjabi,
one. But man, you're right. Or like it's rare to meet. There's also sometimes you'll meet Uber drivers from other nationalities as well. Like in Toronto, you'll meet Uber drivers of all nationalities.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not a cartel that's run by Punjabis, but like they do it pretty well. But I'm surprised you met somebody from Kerala. Like that's like to be honest, like I haven't met one, and it's pretty like there's a lot of them here. But go on.
Yeah. No way, that's crazy. Yeah, I noticed in Doha, because I took it quite a bit when I was there this time, and it was the same. It was mostly they were from Bangladesh or from Pakistan.
Yeah, which is, dude, that's just Pakistan at some point, pre-1971, there's Pakistan,
So just east and west.
East and west, yeah. The bad and the good Pakistan.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but I didn't specify which one. I said don't come for me. Yeah.
But I mean here, it's happened a couple times before, because I think it's more recently that there's been more migration here from Kerala. Yeah. Like a lot of like students had moved here, and I think some people moved like on with their families and stuff,
Right.
But it's still rare. Like I'll admit, like I haven't really met many people from Kerala here, like in Uber at least. But I remember when he mentioned that, right? I had to tell him that, where I grew up, because I was like, I'm sure he'll at least know of it, and then like it's a point of like natural point of conversation.
True.
And so when I mentioned I like lived in Doha, and he was like, "Man, no way! Like I lived there for 8 years."
No way. No way.
And yeah, dude. He's like, "Yeah, I used to live in Al Sadd, and
dude,
I was like, dude, what a small world, And then we started talking a little bit about Qatar, and he's like, yeah, I still like have family there, so I go there often, and I really like the time that I spent there, and and
what do you do here?
Yeah, I can't remember, like, but I have no idea actually. I don't even know if he mentioned it. But it was, he seemed pretty young, so it must have been some, like, like pretty still entry-level job that he was doing there. But, like, it was just interesting, like, how small the world is, We're in, like in the suburb of Toronto, and I just happened to meet someone who's lived on the other side of the world where I grew up,
Yeah. That's two connections, man, and quite serendipitous, yeah?
Yeah, definitely, man. We ended up having a good chat about, Doha and, like, some of the places we used to hang out at, and...
No way. Nice.
Kind of... Lusail, we talked a bit about Lusail.
Nice.
I remember... I was trying to think of this... I mentioned like what kind of food I like from like that's from Kerala, and he was like so like surprised to hear that, you know, like but then, you know, I think it's because I tried it in Kerala when I visited.
You've traveled there.
Yup. He was just surprised to hear that I'd like, you know, tried all of these dishes, and then I was like, yeah, I really like MRA especially. You know, like,
so basic, yeah.
Dude, it's so good though.
No, I wouldn't know, you know, like, let them eat cake.
Oh man, I've only been there once because Kevin met me.
Why is it always him, man? Yeah.
Dude, it was Kevin, you know,
he's the gateway drug, buddy. He's the gateway drug. Yeah.
I agree. You know, he's like, he works right in front of an MRA, so that like after work he met me there.
Yeah, I know this one. It's on the old airport road, isn't it?
That's the one, exactly. Yeah. That's it. Man, you know Doha like the back of your hand, man.
Almost like I'm an Uber driver, right?
No, not Uber driver. I would say the original like orange cab driver. You know.
Thank you, buddy.
No, not in that way.
No, I'm joking. I'm just having fun. I remember the orange cab drivers. Dude, they were the OGs. Like, they did whatever they wanted to. They dropped you off. Like, they kind of knew where you were going. They just stereotyped you and dropped you off where they thought you were going.
Dude, it was brilliant, wasn't it?
It was like no Google Maps, nothing.
It was like predictive analytics and shit, you know, like they knew exactly where you want to be dropped off.
Exactly, and you had to find these dudes. Like, you couldn't order a cab, you just stood on the street waiting for one, and I can't believe that actually worked.
But no, you know, the reason I said either the orange cab or the Karwa, you know, the Karwa drivers, I don't know if is Karwa taxis still a thing?
Yeah, they're still around, yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw some actually. You're right, at the airport.
Yeah, the airport's where you generally see them. Yeah.
But yeah, so I remember those guys didn't even need a GPS, you know, to go to your exact location, like where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
But it's the same with here. Like, if you look at the original cab drivers, it's like they. I think you must have heard this about London as well.
Hey, dude, I was just about to say, you know, if you had to be a black cab driver in London, that you had to know every small gully, you know? Like, you had to actually knew that. How do we know the same shit, man? But 100%, yeah.
Dude, it's such a random thing to know, but how do you know that? Like,
I don't know, man. Like, I found it really hard, you know? Like, that would be a lot of effort to put into something that's, you know... Like, I don't know if people saw it as a career back then, but, like, to be a black cab driver in London is pretty demanding, man.
It really is, man. And, like, that's why they had, like, this real reputation. And, like, people were... Even though I think it's for the best, like, what happened with ride shares and, you know,
it's a good
them
topic.
kind of taking market share away from traditional taxis.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were, like, upset that, you know, these guys who've been, like, doing this for so many years and kind of, like, it's their trade almost, you know?
Yeah.
And they know the city, like they're such a integral part of the city. Like, they know it like the back of their hands.
Yeah.
That it's kind of sad to see them, like, lose business and lose market share. And, you know, but that's another topic. But
just on that, the best, like, arguments against traditional cabs are New York cabs and the medallion system that they have, man. It's such a big barrier to entry, you know, that I think that is the first case where I'd, you know, like, defend Uber and other rideshare apps, but, like, go on.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, I agree. Like, and when I say, like, rideshare, I mean, like, all rideshare apps. Like, it's Uber, Lyft, all of them. Like, you know.
Yeah.
I do think it's been like as a whole, it's been a positive change, and it was long overdue. Because if you look at cabs anywhere, like traditional taxis, typically they have a monopoly on service. And man, anyone who's taken even like basic economics will tell you that, you know, economies are inefficient. You know, they lead to bad outcomes for everyone. And that's why we would see the kinds of things with traditional cabs. Like I remember even back in like 12 years ago, taking a cab to like the airport in the US would cost me like $50, you know? Or 55, like, and that's 55 US dollars 10 years ago, which is like, you know, close to like $100 today, you could say. Like, and that's just crazy, man. The fact that it was normal to pay that much for like just a traditional taxi anywhere. And that's a direct result of monopolies, you know, like you get those kinds of insane prices when you don't have like some kind of competition to, you know, to bring prices to reasonable levels.
Agreed.
And that's like, that's completely changed, man. Like, you know, like now I even like, I see like baristas, for example, someone working on a barista salary could still like afford to take Uber to different places, you know? Whereas they could never take like a traditional cab like to places, because it's just not, it's something that you'd see like executives taking in New York, for example, you know?
That's a great example. That's true.
Like the yellow cabs, you know, like it's just not in an average person's budget. Like it's just not something you can afford. Whereas, man, the ride shares, they've really brought it down to where even average folks can like afford to take Ubers when you know they don't have another choice.
Agreed. It's a force for the good, yeah.
I agree, man. I definitely think so.
I don't 100% agree with Uber, but like I think the market disruption needed to happen. That you're right about.
It was long overdue, man. I mean, it's just an inefficiency that everyone's like complained about for so long, but no one like there was no change to that at all. And I've seen it in places. Some places in the world like still have taxi monopolies. Like Goa is one of them, you know, like Goa doesn't have Uber, like they haven't allowed rideshare apps to operate in the state. Because I think it's similar to the medallion system, just like a taxi union. That's like they block like any kind of change that will bring prices down. And will bring fares down and will cut into their profits. And they're like very influential there, you know, so they were able to prevent rideshare apps from, you know, or rideshare companies from gaining ground in the state. And man, it's not uncommon to pay like thousands of rupees just to take a cab to a different part of Goa, you know? True. Which is just crazy, man. Just because, like, in like normal cities, like in like big cities where you have apps, you can go like 40 kilometers, and it would cost you like $8. You know,
man, that is some pricing, hey.
Yeah, man, and it's just the result of like, you know, there being free competition and and no monopoly pricing, you know?
What do you call it? Price gauging?
So price gauging is more when you just kind of just like jack up prices. Yeah, it's definitely price gauging for sure. But also like what you said before, the high barriers to entry, you know, so then you have like just a monopoly market structure.
This is becoming very close to an economics podcast, isn't it? But like, I've always been interested in economics. I've just never gone on to study it. But it's very, very interesting, to be honest. I think
agree, man,
more than finance, economics is much more interesting.
I would have to agree, especially macroeconomics.
Micro is really boring. Like, I don't want to know your kitchen expenses, but I want to know, like, how the world works.
I feel you, man. But yeah, these are very interesting topics, and I noticed though that like once you get to like intermediate econ and like it starts to get a little more advanced. It starts to get a little too abstract and like mathematical. Like if you the change is honestly drastic. Like if you're taking like an introductory econ course, like in a 100 level, like a 101 or like a 160 or just anything in the 100. It's still like very intuitive. The stuff we were talking about, right? Like demand and supply, or like what is it, barriers to entry, and how that's related to prices, and how like when there's only one supplier, right, you can charge whatever prices you want, right? Like those are pretty intuitive ideas that we learn in like introductory economics. But man, I was really bummed out to see that once it gets to intermediate and beyond, it becomes so abstract, and it's like it's just solving like calculus equations at that point.
I agree, but that happens with everything that we like, doesn't it? The like deeper you go into it academically, the more boring it gets. I think we really enjoy topics at like a Wikipedia article level, like don't go too deep, just know enough to hold a conversation. Like I think that's the kind of people we are.
I think so.
But
I think that's exactly it, man.
Yeah.
No, you're right, man. Because I think at some point, if you're going to go really in depth into something, it's going to get like kind of mind numbing, and it won't retain that same kind of like like interesting
you're no longer enticed by it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But it's really weird, but I think we've had a very like weird sidebar here. I don't know how we got to economics from Ubers, but Kerala, the dude from Kerala,
it was just the Doha connection, that it's just so surprising for me that, it's such a tiny country that until recently, like if you told someone you were from there, they probably wouldn't even know it,
True.
And despite that, like I still meet people who've like lived there all the time. And this used to happen in Australia as well, where like I would meet someone and they happened to live in Doha as well,
Nice.
And man, it's crazy to see that. It's a really small world, and it's really shrunk in our lifetimes, where you can meet someone on the other side of the world and find out that you have a friend in common, or that you've grown up in the same place, Yeah,
it's quite annoying, to be honest, because the more you want to meet new people, you just keep like meeting rehash versions of the people you already knew. But on Ubers, man, one of my favorite stories about Ubers is from Nab to Nihari, which is a story of cultures, which we almost kind of named the podcast after, because that's kind of how our conversations are. It goes all around the place. But just to chip in here, I want to give you a story that I don't think I've told you, but it was a pretty shit day in my life, because I remember the day. It was the 22nd of December 2022, right? And I'll give you just the like breakdown of the day. It was Thursday. It was exactly 1 month after we had that conversation about the Bewafa who was in my life, and the day I decided to end it. So it was like 1 month after, and I was not in a good place mentally. So what I used to do back then was on Thursdays I used to go to the desert, Khor al-Daid, which is a thing, and my youth I've spent a lot of time there. And this is like, I don't know who's listening to this. I hope it's just your hubby, but like in the last few episodes I mentioned, I explore the world, 9 to 5, like काम के वक्त में हम सब कुछ करते हैं. So I was in the desert. It was the middle of the day, and I was at the end. Yeah, so the desert in Qatar, if you go in about 45 minutes, you get to a place which is called the Inland Sea, and there you have the desert meeting the ocean. So I was there, and it was like 11 in the morning, and Thursdays are Thursdays, nothing really happens. And I get a phone call, and phone calls my secretary. She says, we've got a meeting, and are you around? And I said, no, I did have work, near the desert in the morning, so I said, I'm there. And she said, would it be possible for you to make it back in an hour? And I said, yeah, I'll try. Which is not possible. Like, I'm 45 minutes away from the edge of the desert, right? And then I need to go back to the city, but I'll make it back. So I started my way back from the edge of the desert, so I think you've seen this. I have this GMC which has like a tire rack in the back, right? So I've got 2 spare tires mounted, and the bed is open, and I've got like harnesses holding the tires in place, right? So when I do go to the desert, that it's not supposed to, but it does come loose. So it did come loose, and I tried to fix it up myself. Now I'm not going to say I'm a very handy person. Most people know this. Like, if you have a jar that you want to open, I'm not the guy, right? I look like that, but like I can't do anything. If you do have a jar to open, your hubby is really good at doing things like that, but it's not me. Yeah, so I just put it in place, and I got to the area where they fill your tires, so I asked the dude, can you fix this for me? Because he was Punjabi, and I thought, definitely, I was just stereotyping. I thought, you definitely worked on a truck. And he said, yeah, how'd you know that? And I said, I don't know, I just guessed. So I asked him, do you know how to do a harness? And he said, yeah, I know how to do a harness. So I said, I've got a tire on the back, it's loose, can you fix it for me? And he said, yeah. And I asked him, where are you from? So he says, Jalandhar, India. And I say, यार एक तो बात यह है कि सिर्फ जलंधर बताने से हम समझ सकते हैं, ये इंडिया बोलने की क्या फ़ायदा, सही. और एक और बात है कि जलंधर और इंडिया की दरमियान स्टेट भी आ जाते हैं यार. अगर बताना है तो जलंधर पंजाब बताओ, तो ये इंडिया वाली बात कहाँ से आता है. But he's a great guy. He helped me put it back. And when I was on the way back, there's 5 minutes from there to the edge of the desert. But my car gave out, so I had to leave it in the desert, right? And I had to call a recovery truck, and then American cars, pieces of shit. So I was at the edge of the desert, and there's nothing, the place. It's midday on a Thursday. There's nobody there. There's nobody. I've shit ton of friends who are constantly there, but not in the middle of the day. First of all, mentally I wasn't doing all that great, and I just thought, great, life couldn't be giving me anything worse now. So I log into the Uber app to see if there's anybody around, and there isn't. And there's a last roundabout at Misaid, which is right before where the desert starts. So I took my stuff, I had a bag, and I thought, I'd wait at the roundabout. If somebody comes by, I'll ask them for a ride. And it's can you imagine that level of being, helpless? What are you going to do? There's no Ubers in that area. There's barely people. There's being stranded in the desert, and I was stranded in the desert. And I stand there, it's a midday heat, and I'm just hoping for a miracle, or मौजिज़ा तो जैसे आपकी भाभी आ जाते हैं कभी-कभी. So a dude turns up in a 25-year-old car. It's battered, it's bruised. It's an old Mitsubishi. And it's got, the purple window film that, costs 25 reals. And he rolls up after I spend 20 minutes there, and he dropped somebody, right? At the edge. I don't know what that dude was doing. So I said, so he looks at me, I look at him, and I say, where are you going? कहाँ जा रहा है? And he says, कहीं भी नहीं, यहाँ सिर्फ आया. तो मैंने उससे पूछा कि यार मुझे छोड़ देगा, कुछ ज़रूरी काम था. So उसने पूछा कहाँ जाना है, तो I told him where. And he said, हाँ यार क्यों नहीं आ जाओ. So I sat in the car, and like in a normal Uber, you sit in the back, right? So I was about to open the back door, and he says, "Yeah, yeah, Joe, like sit in the front." So I thought he was being welcoming, you know. Like most Uber drivers don't like it if you sit in the front, also. So which is why I prefer to sit in the front, but they don't like it. So I thought he was being welcoming, but I actually sat down in the front, and he said, "Yeah, वो पीछे ना AC नहीं आते." So I said, "All right, that's hard anyway." So we started talking, and I asked him, you know, यार आप कहाँ से हैं? तो he said, मैं यार पेशावर से, और आप कहाँ से? तो उस ज़माने में मैं बताता था लोगों को कि मैं लाहौर से हूँ. तो मैंने कहा लाहौर. तो उसने पूछा लाहौर में कहा. तो at that point in time I used to say DHA phase 5, right? So I said DHA phase 5. He's like, अच्छा DHA डिफेंस का बंदा है. तो हाँ जी. तो and this is all again to anybody who's listening, it's all made up, yeah. So he says, you know, मैं यार कुछ वक्त लाहौर में था. तो मैंने पूछा अच्छा कहाँ? तो उसने कहा यार अंदरून लाहौर में था. तो मैंने पूछा क्या करता था? तो उसने कहा कि यार मैं वो जो सड़कों पे जो स्टॉल्स होते हैं ना, जो मतलब काफ़ी खूबसूरत खाने मिलते हैं यार वहाँ से, मगर वो वहाँ काम करता था कि जो रमज़ान में रात में स्टॉल्स पड़े हुए थे सड़कों पर. और जो एक जगह है जो लाहौर में दिल्ली गेट नाम है, तो उसकी सामने तो काफ़ी अच्छे मतलब रमज़ान पूरे रात वहाँ अच्छे खाने बनते हैं यार. तो ये बंदा वहाँ काम करते थे, मगर पेशावर से है वो. काफ़ी देर तो लाहौर में काम किया था और उसके बाद यहाँ आए. और ये ऊबर भी नहीं है, सिर्फ उसकी गाड़ी है. वो मुझे छोड़ देने की मतलब मान ली, मतलब ये मेहमानगारी था उसका. तो एंड लाइक द प्लेस आई हैड टू गो वाज लाइक एन आवर अवे, यू नो, इट्स वेरी फार. So at that point in time, it was like already 12. My secretary called me and I said, "Listen, I'm going to be late. Like, manage it for me, right?" So I was not worried anymore about what was going on. So he asked me at this point, and you know this part of the story, कि यार वहाँ एक जगह है जो आपकी घर के सामने है जहाँ साइकिल रिपेयर करता है. तो मैंने पूछा अच्छा कैसे बताओ कि एंड ही सेड, यू नो, यार ऐसे एक मोहल्ले है. और he described it to me, and he asked me like आपने कहीं वहाँ गया है? तो like at this point I could have just said no, but like I'm so committed to playing, you know, the actor, method actor हूँ, कि मैंने कहा कि हाँ यार मैं छोटा था मगर मुझे याद है. So एक तो बात ये है कि मुझे समझ ही ना आए ये जगह का है. दूसरी बात ये है कि बंदे ने तो मान भी ली. तो उसके बाद यार काफ़ी लंबा जर्नी था, और उसकी पुरानी गाड़ी है, सिर्फ वो मतलब FM ट्रांसमीटर है. तो मैंने पूछा यार गाने डालते हैं? तो उसने कहा हाँ यार मेरे पास नहीं, आपके पास है तो डाल लो. तो मैंने कहा अच्छा ठीक है. सो आई स्टार्टेड प्लेइंग माय प्लेलिस्ट, एंड एट दिस पॉइंट इन टाइम कैफी खलील हैड जस्ट कम आउट विद कहानी सुनो, एंड इट वाज लाइक वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट ट्रैक्स एट द टाइम. लाइक पूरे पाकिस्तान तो सुनता था गाने बंदे का. तो लियारी की बंदा है. And like he was in Doha like last Valentine's Day, so I did actually see him in concert. So I was listening to that, and he says, you know, यार ये कौन सा गाना है, काफ़ी अच्छी लगता है. तो मैंने कहा यार एक नया बंदा है, उसकी गाना है, and it's like a heartbreak song, and you know, perfect for the time. So like I started playing his entire like music history, and the dude was really into it. Like पेशावर की बंदा है तो उसे अच्छे लगा. उसके बाद मैंने उससे पूछा यार आपको क्या सुनने अच्छे लगते हैं? तो he said यार मेरे ना पता नहीं आजकल तो दिल काफ़ी टूटा है. तो मैंने पूछा अच्छा क्यों? तो उसने कहा यार एक बंदी थी ज़िंदगी में, वो बेवफा निकली. एंड आई एम लाइक यार तू तो मेरा भाई है. तो हमारे मतलब एहसास एक ही था. तो मैंने पूछा अच्छा यार तो अभी आजकल क्या सुन रहे? तो उसने कहा यार पता है वो पुराने आतिफ के गाने आजकल वो काफ़ी अच्छे लग रहे हैं. तो मैंने पूछा जी वाकई I'm not making this shit up. तो so I asked him यार मैं तो आतिफ की बड़ी मारे हूँ, कौन से गाना? तो उसने शुरू की कि यार जो भी हमारे मतलब जेल की एक मतलब प्लेलिस्ट है उस वक्त के, और उसके बाद जो बॉलीवुड वाला गाना है वो भी उसे काफ़ी अच्छा लगा था. तो ये मतलब एक गाना है कि जीने लगा हूँ, उसने वहाँ से शुरू की. और यार जब गाने ख़त्म हुए ना तो उसने कहा कि यार जब मैंने इस बंदी से मिले तो मुझे लगा कि मेरे तो काफ़ी ख़राब की हालत है, मेरे पास कुछ नहीं, मैं तो यहाँ गाड़ी चलता हूँ, ये भी मेरे काम नहीं, सिर्फ पैसे मिलने के लिए करता हूँ, मगर जब उससे मिला तो मुझे वाकई में जीने लगा था यार। और उसने कहा कि यार अब ना नहीं लगता। तो मैंने कहा यार मेरे भी ये एहसास है, मगर अब मतलब मुसलसल रहना, कुछ ना कुछ तो हो जाएंगे। तो उसके बाद मतलब आतिफ की गाने तो आपको पता है कि हमेशा ऐसे ही होते हैं कि काफ़ी गम के मारे सुनता है, और खुशी वाला गाना ज़्यादा नहीं। मगर हम यार 1 घंटे था और बंदे की गाड़ी काफ़ी मतलब इतना पुराना था कि 1 घंटे की जो सफ़र था वो तो 1.5 घंटे तो लग गए। तो उस वक्त में यार मिनिमम 20-25 सॉन्ग्स तो कवर हो जाता है। तो हमने सुना पूरा आतिफ की कि जो भी जल की वक्त में, और उसके बाद जो बॉलीवुड वाले गाने सब सुन ली। और जब मतलब पहुंच गया तो मैंने उससे पूछा यार वैसे बड़ी मेहरबानी है आपकी, मगर आप ये रख लो सही कि वो मैंने उसे कुछ पैसे दी थी कि यार सही होंगे कि बंदे हमारे दोस्त हैं, मगर पेट्रोल की खर्चे तो होता है। तो उसने कहा नहीं यार कोई ज़रूरत नहीं। तो मैंने कहा यार मैं लाजिम है कि मैं नहीं मानेंगे कि आप पैसे नहीं देंगे तो। और यार सिर्फ पाकिस्तानी बंदे ऐसे करते हैं, बड़ी मतलब थोड़ी भी मतलब ही नहीं हो बंदा। तो मैंने उसे कहा यार मतलब रख लो। और उसने कहा यार आपकी गाड़ी, लाइक ही न्यू द स्टोरी कि यू नो माई कार वाज ऑन माई पिकअप वाज ऑन अ रिकवरी ट्रक। सो सर आप घर कैसे जाएंगे? तो मैंने उसे बताया कि यार पता नहीं, किसी ना किसी को पूछना पड़ेगा। तो उसने कहा यार कितने बजे घर जाना है? तो मैंने उसे बताया कि 5। तो उसने कहा ठीक है, एक काम करता हूँ, मैं यही आता हूँ, आपको लेकर घर छोड़ता हूँ। तो मैंने कहा यार बड़ी मतलब अच्छे बात है, आ जाओ, हम दोबारा मिलते हैं, मेरे पास और भी गाना है, सुनता है। तो उसने कहा अच्छा यार ठीक है। तो महफिल मतलब सेट है। और बंदे ने 5 बजे आई। और यार आज भी ना वो जो पेशावर से वो मुझे तस्वीरें दिखाई थी जो वो नथिया गली गए थे। और उसने मतलब यार छोटी उम्र की था, मगर काफ़ी ऐसे नहीं लगते, पठान तो काफ़ी काफ़ी बुढ़े लगते छोटे छोटे उम्र में। मगर उसने भी सारी तस्वीरें दिखाई जो उसने वो पहाड़ों के सामने ली थी। और यार पता है ना कि काफ़ी खूबसूरत था। और 5 बजे आए, हम दोबारा मिले, उसने मुझे घर छोड़ दी। एंड इट्स जस्ट वन ऑफ द अदर Uber experiences I've had, but like we have about 2 minutes remaining, and this one buddy, like I'm sure we've had this title for a long time, but I'll let you do the honors. This is episode 18.
Oh man, this was dope. The title I had in mind was Uber Sharif.
Nice. I wouldn't say you should change that. I like it.
No, man, I appreciate it. It's a throwback to Omar Sharif as well, who's like an icon that we grew up with in that time.
Yeah.
Sharif was such a classic. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next episode too.
Yeah.
But man, it was a dope story, dude. Like what a good Samaritan, man. Like he like literally rescued you out there and like didn't even get any like money for it.
Absolutely.
What a lad, dude.
Absolutely, man. तो वो था बिलाल फ्रॉम पेशावर, मगर सलमान फ्रॉम गुजरात वाला सब ऐसे ही निकलता है.
Bilal, bro.
हर बिलावल भुट्टो नहीं है.
नहीं यार, ये मुझे अपने स्कूल के बिलाल की याद आ गई थी आपके नाम से ना. वो भी एक, he was also truly one of a kind.
True. But what do you want to name this one, man? Episode 18. Uber Sharif?
Uber Sharif, say yeah.
Alright. In consensus, we've come to that title. And I like it, to be honest. I like all our titles, but this has been, Pointless Stories with Karshan and Fest. This was the equivalent of our Christmas special. I think we'd like to call it the Uber special, but this was episode 18, Uber Sharif. We'll see you in the next one.